Man, what a month it's been. When detractors began to make videos critical of Hampture, many of you urged me not to acknowledge them. But I feel as though I should. If for no other reason than because the attention that those useful idiots attracted to this project resulted in a significant bump to new pledges on my Patreon. As you can see, up until that point, it was trending pretty reliably downwards, but then... So now I feel like the smart thing to do is to keep stoking that flame, because the more videos they make attacking this project, the more funding increases. It's been really fulfilling watching that blow up in their faces. These people are the kind of petty tyrants, small people who have no power in their day-to-day lives. So they get that fulfillment, that feeling of power, by engaging in targeted harassment online. However, I've also met a lot of cool people. I've made a lot of friends with this project, which has been really satisfying. I haven't really had a lot of friends until recently. Some of them are on the spectrum, which is pretty neat. I've been connecting with a lot of other autistic people. I've disclosed that I was autistic since basically the first video. That's not been something that I just brought out recently. I did mention it in the last video as an answer to the question of why don't you get a real job. What I said was that being autistic makes it very difficult to get a regular 9-to-5 and to keep it once you have it. What my critics heard was, you can't criticize me because I'm autistic. Here are some of the comments that I'm talking about. Notice the consistent attitude throughout that mental illness is dubious. It's a question in their minds whether or not I'm autistic at all, as though I might be making it up. And secondarily, that if I am autistic, that I'm using it as a shield against criticism and consequences. That says a lot more about the people who wrote these comments than it does about me, I feel. It's an attitude that everybody on the spectrum is very familiar with. We encounter it all the time. There's this pervasive sort of urban legend that there's an epidemic of people with made-up mental illnesses that they use as an excuse for misbehavior, just to get away with things. They swear up and down that it's real, and they have all these anecdotes of a friend who knows somebody who did this. But really, I feel like it's to justify their own suspicion of mentally ill people and of the concept of mental illness. And before you hammer it out in the comments, yes, I know Tumblr exists. I know what kind of people hang out there. I know about the Oppression Olympics, but that's really a much smaller percentage of the population than you might be led to believe by its exposure on the internet. It gets around precisely because it's outrageous. It gets a lot of clicks. Obviously, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just don't think it happens frequently enough to warrant the reflexive assumption that whenever somebody discloses a mental illness, it's for fraudulent or sinister reasons. It would just be nice to live in a world where if you do something weird and after the fact you want people to know you didn't just do it for kicks or to be an asshole, that there's a reason your brain is like that you can tell them, and their first reaction won't be, you're trying to trick me or get away with something. Sorry to go on about this, it's just I've made a lot of friends on the spectrum through this project, and I've become more conscious because of it of the struggles that we have in common. I never said that because I'm autistic you can't criticize me. Clearly I have no way of stopping that anyways. I have never said that you're a bad person if you criticize me because of my autism. All I ever said was that the reason that I struggle to gain traditional employment and to keep it is because of sensory issues, issues with regulating volume, social difficulties, and so on that are symptomatic of autism spectrum disorders. In fact, I'll explicitly state the opposite. You are free to criticize me. This is a free country, which may come as a surprise to some of you, judging by your proclivity for targeted harassment. I'm not in charge of you. You're not in charge of me. We're both free citizens. You're free to do anything that isn't against the law, but so am I. Interesting to note that housing hamsters safely and comfortably underwater is not against the law. Targeted online harassment is. Not that it's practical to enforce, so I'm not going to bother. I'll just say that not only are your feelings not the law, but you have no medical qualifications either. The medical criteria which determine whether or not somebody has a given mental illness do not include whether you personally like or dislike them. But by all means, keep at it. Make me more money. And while you're at it, I urge you to examine your own attitudes towards mental illness and ask yourself why the first thing that comes to mind, your immediate interpretation of the disclosure of mental illness is that someone's trying to trick you, that there's some kind of ruse and they're trying to get away with something. Really look deep within yourself and ask why you react that way. I don't think the critics are going to listen. They have repeatedly characterized me as though I'm the one being stubborn because I defend my project and I defend the precautions that I've taken. They have this attitude that it's unreasonable of me to argue with them. I'm supposed to just obey. The whole world is supposed to just bow down to their feelings. They're the only good people. They're the righteous, pure people. The nature of outrage mobs is that no single member feels responsible for what the group does. And there's a feeling of power that comes from being a part of a group like that. To where you feel as though, of course, you have the right to force strangers to submit. How dare they argue with you? All the while crying bloody murder if anybody else were to make the same demands of them. It's very one way, you see. I mean, imagine if I were to pick one of these homeowners association types, choose something about their livelihood that I consider immoral, and demand that they dismantle it. How would they react to that? They'd probably ask who the fuck I think I am. Anyway, enough bullshit. It's hamster time! I do want to set the record straight, though. Only one of them was a furry. That was Luxray. The other one was the vegan communist. I don't like my detractors, but I also don't like dishonesty. Precision is very important to me. So, why am I here? It's a question I ask myself every time I come to Home Depot, shopping for hamster habitat parts, knowing that if the people around me knew what I was doing there, they would probably have me committed. Hello, Home Depot, my old friend. I've come to shop from you again. I finally found flexible climbing tube in the right diameter. I wanted just black, but this is what they had. I told them it was for my bitchin' elephant cosplay. Now, you know what this is for? This is for the Long Johnson costume. Remember that meme cat that was like, "Oh, Long Johnson." Oh, Long Johnson. This is the guy. This is for a costume of that guy. Guess which part? I now have support bolts in 5.5 and 5 inches in case I want to try out different heights. I have the washers and shorter screws so I can mount the handles correctly. As soon as I perfect this system of building little like trays and handles and things for one habitat, everything after that will go much more quickly. It's just like it was with the smaller habitat. Once I nailed down the exact parts to buy and the exact way to put them together and the exact bolt sizes and everything, I was able to knock out that second one within a month. It's going to be the same way with MegaHab. What has my life become? Building colonies for underwater hamsters. Okay, the new legs are on. I don't know if they're the right height yet. They look like they are. I'll find out when I have the handles attached. And I can slip it into the habitat shell and get a good idea of whether or not I'm going to have to swap these out for the 5.5 inch supports. I don't think so. I think I've got it right this time. These look the right size too. Holy fuck, they are. Awesome. Can you even see that? No, you can't. I'll bring it down here. Always got to use washers because this is coroplast. It's not like I'm attaching these to a sheet metal or something. That way it's nice and sturdy. Listen to me, I'm the Bob Ross of underwater hamsterology. I don't know how to feel about that. Well, yes I do. Nothing at all, because my heart's broken and I'm a troubled man. Put this one on this side. I'm pleased with this design. This is clever. I'm still going back and forth on whether or not to do this for the roof of the habitat, the lid. A lot of people in the comments on Twitter were saying, don't do that, it's not going to be strong enough, but I feel like it would be. I feel like I can afford to try that on the first prototype, because it's a prototype, that's what it's for. If it turns out that's not sturdy enough, I can always make another one, and now, for whatever reason, the parts have come down in cost quite a bit. So building the second MegaHab will not be as expensive as it was to build the first. And there we go. Presto Alfredo. I shall install this in MegaHab and get some footage of exactly how it rests. Oh yes! That is exactly where I want it to be. I could even push it up a little bit more with the 5.5 inches, but I don't think I want to. That looks like it just exactly bisects the interior of the aquarium. I could have gone with thinner bolts actually, because there's a smaller diameter bolt that's 5-inch, but I would have had to recut the coroplast and I don't want to waste any of it because it's plastic. This looks fine to me. Next up will be to use a hole saw to cut the hole for the climbing tube. Now I'm going to cut the hole for the climbing tube, trying my best not to drill directly into my dick, because I'd like to think I'm going to use that again someday. Looking good. Fuck, I hope that's the right length. Otherwise I've wasted some tube, although it wasn't terribly expensive. It is online. If I had bought online, I would have spent quite a lot of money. $40 to $100 on a length of tube much longer than I needed. But luckily I was able to find exactly the length and diameter necessary at Home Depot. This is starting to sound like a Home Depot commercial, although I'm sure they would rather not be associated with this project. Looking good, better. Looking better. I think that's just about the right height. You can kind of screw it in there. It's because it's threaded. I think once the litter is in there, it will be closer to the height that I want. That's why I cut it a little bit short, since putting the litter in will bring the floor level up just a little bit. Yeah, you can lift it out. Easy peasy for cleaning. I think what this still needs is, I want to put a running wheel in here, just like that. Maybe more towards the back to free up some space. Although I don't want them to not be able to get back here, because of course I cut holes in the backs of these things so that the hollow space underneath is not wasted, but can be used as a hide. So I want at least like ½ an inch back there so they can squish themselves in there as needed. But other than that, if I can bolt this down to the coroplast, it will prevent them from moving this around, and importantly, it will prevent them from putting it over the tunnel, which will not totally block their access, because again, they can get in through the back, but it would be suboptimal. And of course, if this is at the bottom of a pond or a lake, I won't be able to get in there to correct the position easily. So I think I'm just going to fucking drill some holes here and here and bolt that sucker straight to the coroplast. Now don't panic, it's open a crack. There's fresh air. I just wanted to give you a sense of scale of how much bigger this is than the existing modules. It's 2 floors, and each of the floors is slightly bigger than an existing ham base module of the sort that's in the aquarium currently. And I was originally planning on 8 of these in a ring, but that might have been a bit ambitious. Until I find a satisfactory way of bending those tubes, I want to, I think, try for 4 of these in a straight line. Using 2 aquarium pumps. I think that will be ample power draw as is. I can't power infinite pumps off of that solar array after all. I chose 4 because that way there will be 2 physical pumps, and the deep water pumps capable of pushing air down 8 feet are only single motor. They're not dual motor like the battery backup pump I have in the aquarium setup, so I need there to be 2 of them, and that will support exactly 4 of these habitats. And I figure that each one of these is sufficient for 1 hamster, so that I can have a crew of 4 if I can find a sibling group of 4 hamsters. And each of them will have their own space, as well as a space they can retreat to get away from the other hamsters. So the ground floor can be a sort of common area, and the upper floor will be their own private little nest. Now, I recently got these LED lighting elements. They normally go inside of a silicone sleeve that has a magnet to attach to your clothing. I stripped that shit off right away. They have a LiPo rechargeable battery built in, so in the event of a power failure, which will knock out the heating pads and the floors, but not the air pumps, because the air pumps will have battery backup. And I'm only powering life-critical systems. Except for these lights. These lights, will, because they have their own batteries, will continue to operate even in the event of an outage, so I can see what's happening, which is crucial. I can see that bubbles are still coming out. I can see the water's not getting in and stuff like that. Now there's 3 of them. I plan to mount 1 to either side of the dome on the ceiling, and maybe 1 on the bottom floor. I don't think so. I'm leaning away from that now because it's nice for them to have a permanently dark space that's just always dark day or night. I'm thinking maybe I can have a solar system, some kind of photodiode that will turn these LED lights off during the day. I'm not sure about that, but it's not a big deal to just have them powered off of a USB hub that will also power anything else I want to run in here, and have that run off of an adapter so that it can run off the 110 volts coming from the heated floor pad. As you can see, I've had to modify the tube somewhat so the hamster can find the bottom entry reliably. This seems to work as a space-saving alternative to the stairs, though the hamster can't always decide which floor it wants to be on at any given moment. My concern right now is with the hamster chewing the edges of the tube until it is, like that, until it's too high for it to reach, at which point it will have cut off its own access to the upper floor. My solution is twofold. The first being to line the rim of the climbing tunnel with hot sauce, just the outside so they don't get it on their fur. And the second being that the ground floor is where the connections to the other habitats by tube will be, and how they will access the food and water module, so that even if they destroy the climbing tunnel, they will never accidentally cut themselves off from being able to eat or drink. If I tickle you. If I tickle you. There it is with the lights installed. Again, I'm probably not going to include a light on the bottom floor. just for the comfort of the hamsters, but it looks cool all lit up like that. It's kind of a shame I don't think I can wire up a light for the bottom floor safely, because this one looks dope. It's adapted from an old Iron Man t-shirt that I used to have. Maybe I'll come up with something. I don't know. Yeah, that's it for this video. What's up next? Electrical stuff, mostly. The structure of MegaHab is 80 to 85% complete. I'm going to install the heated floor next, and the USB stuff, like the webcam, the cables for the lighting elements that will go to a 4-port USB hub. Originally, I planned to power all of that off of the 110-volt electricity coming in for the heated pad through an adapter. I don't know about that anymore. It seems like an electrocution hazard no matter how well I insulate it. So since I need to have a separate USB cable for the webcam anyway, I may as well just send down power for the USB stuff via that cable and include it in the same umbilical cladding as the rest of the air and power stuff. Sorry about half the video was bitching. Don't worry too much about my critics. It's just full of sound and fury signifying nothing so far. Besides which, they haven't even seen my final form. Shazam! That's right. I own more than one pair of sunglasses. What's it to you? Anyway, happy Halloween from Mad Scientist and my beautiful son.